Welcome to the Roots of Success podcast.
We've raised the bar.
Tap into the source of your success through real stories from real people.
I'm going to show you how great I am.
It's time to level up and get to the root of your success.
And now your host, Nate the Great Peterman.
What's going on, guys? Welcome to episode 37 of the Roots of Success podcast. I am your host, Nate the Great Peterman, coming at you. And today we have a very, very special guest, my brother, Quest Green. What's going on, man?
Oh, what's going on, my man? Yep. You said special. Don't worry. The check is in the mail.
How we doing, brother? How have things been?
Man, I can't complain, man. The grind is always at the forefront of the day-to-day. But we try to not put it before the family and the kids. You know what I mean? Before the wife and the kids. Yeah. For
sure, brother. Yeah. And for the listeners and the viewers, you know, they might be wondering, who's Quest? I wanted to hear a little bit of a background. Quest Green, he understands marriage. His previous divorce makes him a perfect advocate for marriages. His story of past failures and realization of the absence of core values resonates with people who are experiencing the challenges that marriage can present when not properly equipped. Not only did Quest overcome his difficult past, he has since been remarried and is currently the director of Thank God I'm Married at Eric Thomas and Associates, LLC. He currently lives happily in North Carolina with his wife, Faith, their daughter and two sons, Zoey, Dominic, as well as Mason.
Yep.
That's incredible, brother. So, man, I know you have quite the background, to say the least, and of course the credentials to match up with that. I would love for you to really just express, where you come from a little bit more on a deeper level, just so the audience can really get a full understanding of who Quest Green really is.
Yep. So there's when I was young, I've been a Christian for pretty much all my life, not always practicing. When I was a young adult and teenager, I kind of wild out a little bit, if you will. But we used to have this organization, Nate, called Pathfinders. It's kind of like Boy Scouts, Girl Scouts, kind of like integrated into one. There used to be a motto, right? And a part of the motto, I won't give you the whole thing, but there's a part of the motto that says, I will be a servant of God and a friend to man. And that is how I characterize, I guess, me in a nutshell. I'm trying my best to be a servant of God and a friend to man. And that's to any man, woman. I don't care if you black, white, purple, plaid. I don't care what you are, just to be a friend to man. It sounds corny sometimes, Nate, and kind of, when people use that song, what the world needs now is love. Right. And I'm a true believer in that. Like, the word declares that love covers a multitude of sins. And so if we would just learn how to get along better and just understand where people are coming from. And that's kind of the person that I am. The animal assessment that, Chris Daniels introduced to us not too long ago. May he rest in peace. I came out as a flamingo, like a very high flamingo. That's the two of us. So, doing what we're doing right now is really my fuel. So that's one side of it. That's just who I am in a nutshell. And the other side of it is I have a passion for marriages. I want to see marriages succeed. But I want to see marriage. Yeah, they can go awry. They can get real gnarly sometimes, depending on whether or not you do it right. And the first time I did it completely wrong. I chose someone who, for physical attributes, not whether or not we were compatible. And long story short, it ended in calamity. And so I believe that the big man upstairs has called me to do this particular work. And I've been running, of course, as the director for Thank God I'm Married over at Eric Thomas and Associates, and E.T., who's been like my big brother for like the last 20 years. He and his wife, Dee Dee, have definitely exemplified what marriage looks like. And I've been taking nuggets from them over a long period of time, in addition to, just doing it myself and eventually becoming a teacher of what I've learned, good, bad, ugly, and everything else in between. So yeah, that's pretty much Quest in a nutshell, man.
No, for sure, man. It's crazy, Quest, because you see a lot of relationships and a lot of marriages, and unfortunately, I don't know. Do you know like the percentage of divorce rate?
Yeah, I do actually. it used to be, from what I understand, 50%, and it was attributed to the highest cause for divorce was finances. Now I think it's elevated to 53%, and the number one cause now, I believe, is communication. But thanks to the millennials, though, they're saying that they're causing the divorce rate to plummet because they're making smarter choices. So shouts out to the millennials.
Hey, we repping it hard over here.
Oh yeah, no doubt, no doubt.
Thanks. So I'm sort of curious, just, your input and your intake. You rewind, let's say 10, 20 years ago, technology really wasn't much of a thing, to be honest with you. It didn't really have much of an impact within just life in general. And of course, relationships and marriages. And you look at it today, the big cause that it really has. And I guess for you, Quest, how significant of an impact does having social media and just technology have an impact on today's relationships compared to, let's say, 20 years ago?
It all depends on how you use social media. The way that I use it, I believe, or I want to say that it has a pretty decent impact. Why? Because we use social media to put out content, the do's, the don'ts, but even with that, I can get myself into trouble. And, if you allow social media to control your life, sometimes you find yourself driving down the road and checking your feed. You know what I'm saying? Bad. Please don't do that. But it really can take over in terms of quality time that you're spending with your spouse. You're trying to work something out together. You're trying to have dinner together, and you're steady talking at the dinner table or at the restaurant, and you're scrolling through your phone and not really interacting. So that's the impact. There's good and bad. It all depends on how you use it,
Yeah, sure thing. No, I'm a big advocate of that myself. Like, I literally, whenever I go out, whether it's with friends or just family, and I see people on their phone, I always put my phone to the side, because it's like, this is time. This is quality time that we're spending. And I want to make sure that, they get the most of it. You have my full attention. And I just feel like a lot of people, they sort of struggle with that, because again, there is so many distractions. It's like,
no doubt.
You look at social media and all the psychological factors that they put into it. You look at Instagram, and there's a reason that, there's a red heart that pops up every single time you check Instagram, because it's all psychological. They want you to stay on the app.
Absolutely.
And it's insane, because it really just destroys relationships and sometimes marriages nowadays,
Man, it's gotten to a point with me, Nate, where sometimes, man, when we hop in the car or when we're out to dinner, I'll turn the ringer off and I'll give my wife my phone to put in her purse.
Wow.
Just so I'm not distracted from the quality time that we're spending together. You know what I'm saying? And I know her love language now is acts of service. That's her primary love language. But even though when we're together, she wants to experience that quality time, and I don't want anything to disrupt her. If it's an emergency, you shouldn't be calling me in the first place. You should be calling 911, right? So whatever it is, it can wait, But yeah, I usually just turn my phone off, turn the ringer off, and give it to my wife, and she puts it in her purse. And that way, I don't have any distractions. Distractions. We can pick back up when we get to the house. So yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I do that with my phone. Thank goodness, Apple has that do not disturb mode.
Oh yeah.
And then even airplane mode, because at nighttime, listening to Sean Stevenson and what he recommends, of course, on the health tips and the sleep smarter tips. Definitely has a really big impact as well, just that airplane mode, and really, of course, helping with your sleep and everything. But let's sort of go back a little bit ways, Quest, in your life. I know, of course, with the first marriage and everything, I'm sure that definitely has like a very sacred place within yourself and within some of the things that you had to go through. Sort of, I'm not saying walk through, step by step, but what might have been, some of those key attributes that, unfortunately, I know you said, of course, like trait-wise, didn't necessarily match up as best as what it could have been.
Yep.
So how important, I guess you can say, character trait-wise, personality type-wise, would you say is really just getting to know one's love language, or getting to know one, animal trait or personality type? How important has that been for yourself, just, of course, within your marriages now, or your marriage that you have currently, compared to like your past one?
I believe it's very important, Nate, but I don't believe that that's where it rests, right?
Okay.
Like that's the end all, do all end all, like, right? People say that opposites attract, and I've heard that cliche like over and over again, but at what point do they not attract, right? And what I've come to realize is it's at the point that the core values don't match, right? So having a list of core values and knowing what your core values are and not compromising on those things when choosing a mate to date, to become engaged to, and then later on for marriage, if that's the direction that you're heading in. And let me just be frank or blunt if I can.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see, especially young people now, is getting in physical relationships, right? And letting the physical relationships determine whether they want to pursue marriage or not. You know what I'm saying? Like that being the basis, because the sex is good, let's just go ahead and engage in this relationship and then later on get married. But life gets real. I've read some studies before, Nate, and they said that the average lovey-dovey feelings of a relationship wear off after 2 years. Wow. Some a little bit later, or some a little bit more than 2 years, some a little bit less. But the average is about 2 years, and then real life starts kicking in, right? And the things that you thought were cute are no longer cute, right? And so you can hold out and not say anything for as long as you possibly can, but either you do it now or you do it later. It's going to come out either because of frustration and everything else, because you just can't sit there and deal with this one thing any longer. So I encourage people a lot, couples a lot, Nate, to pay attention to intellectual dialogue, pay attention to emotional control. How does this person react when, you know what I'm saying, like something bad happens, right? And do they, if you get into a disagreement, do they have enough self-control to have a discussion about the disagreement and not a slap down, drag out argument, right? How are you in terms of spiritual unity, right? How are you in terms of common values? And if those things match and you find that you're compatible, then go ahead and move. Because I promise you, marriage in and of itself presents its own challenges. Why would you go and introduce more challenges on top of that? And I promise you, that's the one thing that I did in the past. I got into a relationship because she was built the way that I like. She was, all of those things. But when life hits, there's not a thing that 36, 24, 38 can do for you, right? Life, I don't care how beautiful they may look. This is the same person that you have to live life with 24/7, 365. And so I would say that make sure that you're compatible and don't just let the extra. Here's what's funny, Nate. Here's what's funny. Think of the last. Oh, I'm looking at your mic. Is that a Shure?
I think it's a blue.
Okay. When you went to go and look for that mic and all the equipment that you do your podcasting with, what did you do before you bought it?
Oh, I researched.
What kind of research were you looking at? Were there some specific things that you were looking for?
Yeah, I was making sure, I had the best mic with the best audio quality, just certain things like that. Of course, the brand name definitely had a big say to it.
Okay. Yep. It's funny when we buy laptops, we buy boards buy computers. I'm sure you got a Mac or whatever.
Yep.
Okay, see, there you go. Because we know what we do. It wouldn't be like for real. Anything less would be uncivilized. I sound like an Old Spice commercial, but it's the truth. Anything less would be uncivilized. How much RAM does it have? How much memory does it have? Will it be able to process the information or the sound that we're going through these mics? Do we need a boom arm? Do we need a pop filter? Here we go, right here, right? It's funny. I find it really strange that we will do all that research when we're searching out to buy a laptop or equipment or buy a car or a house. What neighborhood is it in? Public transportation nearby. What is the school systems like? But we never do that when it comes to a relationship. Wow. Oh, she laughs at my little jokes. He coos at me. Yep, wifey, husband. And then you go into this relationship, and after that lovey-dovey feeling wears off, the world hits, boom. Now you're living real life, and things don't work out the way that you want them to work out. And you don't have the tools to navigate through that stuff. And then boom, you end up in the divorce court. So those are some of the things that I did wrong in the past, that when I did it the second time, like for real, E was like, Nate, I promise you, probably the catalyst behind my evolution, if you will, or my change, because he was like, I went to him, I was like, because he was around when I went through the divorce the first time, and I was like, yeah, I can't do this again. He said, well, do you plan on getting married again? I was like, probably.
Right.
I wasn't looking at it like that back then. I was like, I'm not too sure, but I ended up, he said, well, let's just make sure of a couple of things before you even head back in that road. And so a lot of healing, a lot of studying a lot of changing some behaviors. Here we are 7 years later. I got married in 2011 and now it's 2018 and we're rocking stronger than we ever were before. So yeah.
Man.
So you can see the differences between night and day. And I'm not saying that me and Faith don't have difficulties or challenges, Nate. I'm just saying that the way that we handle them now, because there's a certain love and respect that we have for one another. Like for real, we find the gray areas, and if it works for you, then it works for you. We eliminate pride, we eliminate selfishness. There's a certain level of humility that we operate in when we're dealing with one another. And that's the difference between now and way back then.
No, that's deep. I really like how you touched on like the short-term pleasure aspect of things, because I feel like that is one of the biggest things that really just ruins relationships and of course marriages. And that's interesting. You said it takes 2 years to rub off?
That's it, 2 years. Studies show. Dr. John Gottman, who's probably done the most extensive research, they say he's done like 20,000 couples over the last 20 years.
Wow.
And one of the surveys or one of the research projects that he's done is that particular project right there. And he said that over the course of marriage, when people are moving from the engagement into the marriage, and after they get married, 2 years is the average. Some a little bit more, some a little bit less. But after those 2 years, it wears off, and then real life kicks in. Yeah. And I was wanting to say on the tail end of that, it's funny because now you get to realize after that 2 year period that love is not a feeling; it is now a decision.
That's deep.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I look at, and it's funny how it plays out. It's like whenever somebody's in a relationship, right? There's a certain process people go about it. Whenever somebody gets engaged, right, there's another way that people go about the engagement. And then once they get married, it's completely different. It's like, life happens, now it's time to, buckle down and go full on,
Absolutely.
So why do you think the whole processes of these three different things, the relationship, right? Of course, the engagement, and then, they're married. Why do you think, the three different processes sort of operate in a different way when it comes to somebody psychologically, going about things? Obviously, starting out head on, it's like they want to impress each other, right? They might have some of that short-term pleasure, then, the engagement, it might fade just a little bit. It still might be there, of course, but whenever it gets married, it might still be there, but then it fades.
It fades,
right?
Yeah.
So why do you think, all these different processes sort of go in effect psychologically in one's mind, if that makes sense,
I'm not quite sure why they psychologically happen, but I do know that there's a structure by which we should operate when choosing. Me personally, because I'm a Christian, I believe like there's no decision. Like I don't necessarily subscribe to, a soulmate in the context that people understand a soulmate. Like this one person was made for this one person, right?
Gotcha.
Because if that one person marries somebody else, then it just throws everything off. But I do believe that there are people that you are compatible with. I believe that God is like, okay, yep, there's these 4 people that you might be compatible with. You can choose any one of those 4, but these 5 over here run like hell. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So I do believe that. I also believe that, like for real, what we talked about it before, that as you're going through these processes of choosing your mate, as you said, having that psychological effect, choose one that lines up with your core values. Because I promise you, the fact that one man and one woman come together to be married, holy cow, you're wired so differently, Nate. Like, right? Like if my wife is getting out the shower, I'm all eyes and I'm like, yes, God, right? If I get out the shower, she's like, dude, if you do not stop dripping water all over my floor, it's going to be a problem, right? Same situation, different perspectives. Or I don't have anything to wear. To her, that means I have nothing new to wear. To me, that means I have nothing clean to wear. Same situation, different perspective. So you can see there's a million situations from A to Z, or from 1 to a million, that you'll see it's the same situation, but different perspectives. And that in itself, I've seen couples argue over a remote control, Nate.
That's insane.
You understand what I'm saying? And so like for real, those kind of things presents their own challenges, right? Why would you want to go and introduce more challenge into it? So as as it happens where you go through these different phases, don't compromise on your core values, because what you want to do is make a choice as it relates to your core values. And like I said before, Nate, not compromising, right? Because it'll be that one thing that you compromise on, right? And you're like, okay, I'll compromise this in the name of not being lonely, or in the name of wanting to be in relationship or wanting to be engaged, right? Like I'm trying to find the word that best describes that feeling that people go to a wedding and they see all the, you know what I'm saying, all the pomp and circumstance, right?
Oh, yeah.
And then life hits after, like for real, I've never seen a wedding keep two people together.
That's deep.
Like for real, I've never seen a wedding ring keep two people together. It is your commitment, and it is your commitment that you make during the feeling that you have when you're on the altar, that you have to keep long after that feeling is gone.
For sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
Do you think that commitment, for example, with that wedding ring, with that vow, do you think it's diminished over the years compared to, let's say in the past? And if so, why do you think it's diminished?
I don't think the commitment is diminished. I don't think the idea of the commitment has diminished. I think people diminished because they get into marriage and they're not ready for it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
I think that's where the commitment diminishes. But if you are ready, you've mentally, spiritually prepared yourself, emotionally, because that's a big one. Yeah. You got to be emotionally healthy to be in marriage. And because like for real, Nate, let's just keep it 100. I don't think anybody got in marriage for it to be lackluster.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like Faith and I wanted to be phenomenal. And although I'm still striving, I'm somewhere in between great, I think, and phenomenal, somewhere in there or just under great. But in order for it to be phenomenal, there are just a couple of prerequisites that need to be there. Number one, you have to be emotionally healthy. Mm-hmm. Some of us walk around, Nate, with a can of gasoline and a match. And anytime anybody says anything to you, boom, you know what I'm saying? You light up the gasoline, and the emotional responses, emotional control, those things are absent. And there's no way any difficulty or challenge that you have in marriage has to be done through, worked out through communication. And if you blow up at the drop of a dime, that it'll never allow you to have the conversation that needs to be had in order to fix what needs to be fixed. So yeah, I believe that the commitment itself depends on who is the person in the marriage. Yep.
For sure. That's deep.
Mm-hmm.
Let me ask you this, Quest. I know this is a really, big part, of course, within yourself. And how big is spirituality when it comes to marriage?
Oh, man. Let me just say this, Nate. Marriage is a divine institution. And when I say divine, I mean it was created by God. Yeah. The first marriage that he put together was Adam and Eve. And after he put them together, he said, be fruitful, multiply, subdue the earth, and have dominion. That's what he told them. And a lot of the reasons it's not that we can't be fruitful, multiply, and have dominion. A lot of the times it's because that we're too selfish, or we're egotistical, or we're emotionally unhealthy, or, there's a million and one different reasons, right, that we can't get to that. And the reason that God is so important in the institution, let me say this to you, if you bought a BMW, Nate, and something goes wrong with it, can you take it over to Lexus and say, hey, I need you to take a look at this for me? No. I'm like, no, we didn't make that. And some of us are entering into marriage, and you're entering in and you're trying to make it fit you, right? And marriage doesn't fit you, you fit marriage, right? And so God is really important, because sometimes as we talk about the challenge, some people will say, Quest, you always talk towards the difficulty and the challenge. Well, the good is good. We can talk about the good if you want to talk about the good stuff, but it doesn't require anything from you, right? What requires something, because the whole thing is to grow. And that's what marriage does. It cuts you, it shapes you, it forms you. It is probably the only relationship that will challenge you in ways that no other relationship will challenge you outside your relationship with God. And he's important because when the difficulties and the challenges hit, it requires attributes that are not naturally resident within you as a person. Like like if I didn't have God in the mix, right? The word declares that the love of Christ constraineth us, right? So my wife says something to me left field that I don't like, and I blow up on her. What is the one thing? What is the one thing that holds me back, right? The fact that I'm reminded that you are a Christian, number one. Number two, that is your spouse you are talking to. Number three, that's God's daughter. So just be nice and easy with her, right? And in doing so, when I'm operating in the spirit, right, it allows her to see something different in me. And then she's inspired to change her behavior as well. And the reason that I'm saying the spiritual aspect of it is so important is because when you're operating in the spirit, you're operating in the very spirit of God. Now, she can, come out the bag on me if she wants to, but I've never seen a man or a woman arms long enough to box with God. So yeah, good luck with that.
Yeah. No, that's really deep, Quest. I just feel like that's something that many marriages and relationships, they just feel like it's not important.
Yeah.
And again, I mean, there's, plenty of beliefs out there, right? And I just feel as if, if people did get more connected, especially in a spiritual sense, that it would definitely not just last, but it would definitely, of course, strengthen that bond between the two.
Absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Yeah, I know. And of course, like with you and your life, how important that's been for you. And I guess for somebody that might be listening and viewing this, let's say somebody's looking to get more spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
What would you recommend, or, what would you say to that person to really have them take it more serious, or for them to, maybe it's to, go to church, maybe it's to, invest time into, the Bible, maybe it's to just do little things. Like, what are some action steps that you would give somebody, or maybe not just that someone, but that relationship or that couple to do together to really get to that next level in their relationship / marriage?
I would say, Nate, first and foremost, I would find out if they're trying to go to a church,
Okay.
because some people are turned off by that, and by they want to be spiritual, but they've been hurt before as it relates to a church. And then at that point, I would have them understand that, listen, if you went to a hospital and you ran into somebody that has cancer, would you be mad? Like, no, you wouldn't be mad. Why? Because they have cancer and they're at a hospital, right? And that's what the church is. The church is a place for spiritually sick people. And I think sometimes we forget that it's not for perfect people. As a matter of fact, what you'll find in church is some people that are probably just as jacked up as you are, in certain instances, worse jacked up than you are. But what I realize is at the end of the day, we all need God, and we all need him in some way, shape, or form. And I would encourage, somebody to set some time aside and start out with maybe 15 minutes per day, maybe reading your word, and then saying a prayer and just having a spirit of gratitude. Thank you for life. Thank you for health. Thank you for strength. Thank you for goodness. Thank you for grace. Thank you for mercy. Thank you for all the things that caused me to be in existence, because truth be told, I don't have to be here. You know what I'm saying? You remember that person that you read about on the news yesterday that got into that car accident, and it was a fatal car accident? That could have been me.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying? You remember the whole situation? Like, I mean, take your pick. The news every day, it's now tragedy is commonplace. Any one of those tragedies could be you, but it wasn't you. And the reason that it wasn't you is because of the goodness, grace, and mercy of God, right? So just having that level of gratitude, praying early in the mornings, or picking out a time where there are no interruptions, where that's just time for you and God to spend aside. And it doesn't have to be all day. Start out with 15 minutes, and then where it goes from there, and I guarantee you it's going to get more, because when he starts speaking, it's unlike anything you've ever experienced, right? And so I would say start out small, 15 minutes reading, prayer, you know what I'm saying, and some time to think, right? And hear from him. And then you carry on about your day. And then as you do that, and be consistent with it, and as you do that, it will definitely change.
Absolutely. Let's look at it from this perspective, Quest, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, just for example, I'm in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm very spiritual, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm close, but my spouse or my partner, they're not.
Yeah.
Right? I love them to death. I want to be with them,
Yeah.
until the last day.
Yeah.
How can I get over to them the importance of, okay, we need to be in this together if we want to make this last, without, because again, I feel like emotions can really affect this,
Yeah.
without hurting one's maybe ego or their
Yeah.
emotions? How would you go about a process like that?
No, well, let me say this. Let's deal with before marriage first, Nate.
Okay.
I know that this person, first and foremost, I would ask them is, being spiritual or being a Christian, is that a core value of yours? And more than likely they're going to say yes. And then if they say yes, then I would ask, because I know we've discussed it before, then what are the rules as it relates to your core values? Right. And they'll tell me, well, don't compromise my core values. Here's the funny thing, Nate. When people compromise their core values, and it could be something so small as, oh, she's a believer, I'm not. It's all right. I can go to church on my own. I'm not against that. But what happens when you have children and you want your kids to be in church and she doesn't, or he doesn't, that what do you do at that point? And I'm saying that, like, for real, do not by any means compromise your core values. They are your deal breakers, right? And I don't care how much you are maybe into this person. I'm telling you, and what I realized, well, let me just give you this example. There was a young lady that I was dating before Faith and I got married, Nate. And man, I mean, just dope all across the board. So many different wonderful attributes. She was a doctor. She had a whole bunch of things going on for her. I mean, dope. Everything that anybody would look for. But there were a couple of core values that just did not match. And I had to make a hard decision. It was probably one of the worst. It's probably one of the worst decisions I ever had to make. And knowing that she was hurt. And she was like, I don't want to lose you. And I was like, I don't want to lose you either. But the core values didn't match. And I knew that if I compromised on that one core value, based upon what I had been learning over the years with E, that if I did, chances are, what happens when you get married and there's no resolve to that core value that's causing conflict? Divorce is what I'm looking at. And I knew that if I was going to live, if divorce wasn't an option for me in my next marriage, because that was what Faith and I declared for one another. And when you're in that situation, right, you're going to do one of two things if divorce is not an option. You're either going to work that situation out, or you're going to live miserably, right? Yeah. And what happens when the core values don't match and you've also decided that divorce is not an option? You're going to live miserably. If nobody's going to budge, you're going to live miserably. And ultimately, I don't care how much you not make it. It's only but so much suffering that one person will take. There's a breaking point, right? And so if you were before getting, in the dating engagement side of things, and, this person has nothing to do with being spiritual, then chances are you might want to let that relationship go. As a matter of fact, I'll give you another perfect example. A girlfriend of mine was dating a gentleman, and he was well-to-do, nice house, nice car, very good job. I mean, well-to-do, and she was doing all right for herself as well. They go to dinner one night, and this is probably the second date that they went on, and they got into the conversation of kids. And she wants to have kids. She wants to have a family. Yeah. And I remember she asked him a question. It was so crafty. I can't remember the way she asked him the question, but she asked him, one day I want to have kids as well. I think they were having a conversation about kids that were at the restaurant, and he was like, no, I don't want to have any kids. I'm doing well for myself. My business is doing this. I have no intentions on having any kids anytime soon. Rest of the night went lovely. Everything was nice. He paid for dinner. He took her home. And then as soon as he took her home, he says, so can I see you again? And she was like, I would like to, but no. Oh. And he was like, why? He was like, what, did I do something wrong? She was like, no. And she told him, she was like, you are the perfect catch. Any woman would be lucky to have you. But she said, I understand that you don't want kids, and I want kids later on. And it would be foolish of me to carry on in this relationship because I don't want to waste your time, And I definitely don't want to waste my time. And he was like, well, can we at least be friends? And she was like, nah, I don't think that's a good idea. I've got enough friends. That is the perfect example. Like, she was ready to let go of what something that was so sweet to, get something that might have been even better later on. Why? Just because she refused to compromise her core values. And one of those core values was she wanted to have a family. So yeah. And after marriage, Nate, like, for real, I think the only thing you can do is pray for your spouse in hopes that God will touch his or her heart to make a change. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Man, that's insane.
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense though, because it's like, you ain't got to have somebody that, has the house, has the car, has all the, the big time materialistic items. And for her to make that decision to say no, that's powerful.
Oh, powerful.
Struggle.
Yeah. Powerful.
Yeah,
yeah.
So many people struggle with that.
Indeed. But I mean, if we just take time to think about it, I think what happens is, Nate, people don't count the costs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? What would it cost you right now other than a little bit of disappointment to say, man, we can't carry on in this relationship, as opposed to getting married and then finding out later on that you have to retain an attorney for divorce? Like, for real, count the cost. Yeah. You know what it costs? What does it cost like nowadays to have an attorney on retainer? Like $2,500, like, and that's just for retainer.
Yeah.
That work hours and all of that other stuff included, documents that need to be filed. Like, for real, count the cost.
Yeah, them little papers, they sure aren't cheap.
4 papers to file a divorce. It's like $200-something. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, it's crazy. It would behoove us to just make decisions, that are conducive to us being happy, and I'm sorry, not happy, but conducive to us having joy. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for sure. I'm curious, Quest. I want to touch on this a little bit. Let's say, because this does happen, I feel like I don't know if it's rare or not, but I'm curious on your perspective and your feedback on this. Let's say, a couple, they're married, they've been married for about 10 to 15, maybe 10, 20 years, right? And a divorce happens, it just comes about.
Yeah, I've seen it.
Why is it within that time frame? You think it'd be sooner, you wouldn't think it'd be later, but is it like, just with the growth? Is it an age thing? Like why is the purpose of that? You know what I mean?
Well, it can be a number of different things, Nate. Sometimes people will go just as far as they can go, and they go to the breaking point. And sometimes it takes 5 years to reach the breaking point. Sometimes 10 years, for some 15, who knows? And then there's some situations where you have children in the marriage, and they checked out like when the child was 12, 11, 13, right? Needs weren't being met, and they decided, well, we don't want to destroy the kids. You know what I'm saying? And they go until the kids leave home and go away to school. And now that they made the kids the focus to begin with, instead of making each other the focus, right? That's a whole nother conversation altogether. I have something that I call the order of operations, Pete, Nate, where it's God first, spouse second, kids third, and everything else after that, right? Yeah. A husband and wife needs to find time. And if you can't find it, then you need to make time. That is the most important thing above anything you have, your job, your house, your money. The marriage institution is the most important thing outside of your relationship with God that you will ever have. And if you look at it that way, then you keep divorce far away from you. But what I've seen is that couples sometimes spend or have their focus on the children, and when the kids go off to school, we're left with one another who we don't even know like that, because we know our kids more than we know each other, because that's what we've made our focus. And then we're just like, I don't have any interest in you, the person who you are. And at that point, it really could be fixed. But I think what people do is they lose the idea of what things could be as opposed to what they are. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So those are just a couple of the reasons why. Some others are usually for selfish stuff, but those are probably the 2 primary reasons I've seen, outside of the non-communication and all that other stuff, not meeting needs. But yeah.
For sure. Okay. No, that makes sense. What are some activities that couples, people that are married, that they could do to strengthen that
Oh,
quality time together? Because I feel like people they sometimes make the excuse, man, I don't know what to do. I mean, what should I do, Quest? I mean,
yeah.
like card game? I mean, give me some things.
Hey, actually, that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
What I would do is I encourage couples to create a weekly date night. You know what I'm saying? Where it's just you. And here's the funny thing, Nate, you don't even have to go out anywhere. If you got kids and they're babies, put them to bed a little bit earlier. You know what I'm saying? If 8:30 is the bedtime, put them to bed at 8 o'clock. Put them to bed at 8:15. You know what I'm saying? And take some time for, because here's the funny thing, Nate. We spend so much time, married folk, wearing the mom and dad hat, wearing the career hat, wearing the mechanic hat, wearing the fix-it hat, wearing the cleanup hat, wearing all of these different hats. And sometimes we forget to wear the husband and wife hat. And really and truly, we should wear the husband and wife hat more than we wear any other hat, right? But yeah, me and my wife, sometimes we sit up in bed and we play Uno. You know what I'm saying? Like under the covers. And she's like, babe, I feel like I just want to play Uno tonight. All right, cool, let's do that. What that does is it builds a certain level of intimacy. And no, intimacy is not only about sex. Intimacy is about two hearts becoming one. And the way that you do that is through communication. I haven't always been the greatest at communication, Nate. But what I do, let me say this, it takes practice.
Okay.
I know the first couple of times might feel like a train wreck, but keep doing it. Ask about each other's day. Ask about, what the likes and dislikes are, and have grown conversations. Sometimes one couple, they came into my office and how do I talk to him about sex? What are you talking to me about it for? Talk to him about it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're grown, you're doing it. You're doing it and you're not talking about it. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, talk about it. You talk about it to one another, because in that process, you're building a certain level of intimacy, right? And the more intimacy you build, the stronger you are to withstand any challenge, any difficulty that may come your way. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's like you talk to a stranger about it. Why not talk to your spouse about it?
I'm saying, yeah.
No, I've always been, because I know, for sure the activities is a huge part, just that quality time within people's lives. Because, I mean, time's that one thing that we can't get back.
Yeah, nah, you can't. You can't. Once it's spent, what time is it right now? 12:47. It will never be 12:47 on what's today's date?
The 18th.
The 18th. It'll never be 12:47 on October 18th, 2018 ever again. Yep. Every second that goes by is a second for history.
Wow.
Yep.
It's all about that perspective, right?
Oh, absolutely. So let me say this. You don't have time. You don't have to. Okay. There is, Nate, and I always like to share this with people. I know there are not a lot of Bible readers, but there's a text, right, Nate, and it's found in, I want to say Psalms 90, and it speaks to time, right? So I just want to share that real quick, because you just said it, right?
For sure, yeah.
Yep, I think it says, for all our days are passed away in thy wrath. We spend our years as a tale that is told. The days of our years are 80 years and 10. And if by reason of strength they be 80 years, yet is their strength labor and sorrow, for it is soon cut off and we fly away, right? And then verse 12, it says, so teach us how to number our days, that we may apply our hearts unto wisdom. And I thought, Nate, that was real major, right? Because you just said it a while ago in terms of time. And it says, all right, so the average person is given 10 days. Do you know what a score is?
I don't.
A score is 20 years, right?
Holy.
So 10 would be 20, 40, 60, 70 years. So the average person, that Bible says, gives you 70 years. So I said, so the part of the text that says, so teach us how to number our days, is what really blew me by. And I'm a simple dude, right? So I said, okay, what is 70 times 365, right? That is 25, Nate, 25,550 days, right? Yeah, 25,550 days, right? And so I was like, okay, well, let's just say God gave us the full 70. Some of us live past that, right?
Right.
But of course, let's just say he limited it to 25,550 days, which is 70. All right, so let me see. I've been here 45 years already, Nate. And times 365, right, Nate?
Yep.
So I've already been here 16,425 days, right? So let's do the math, Nate. If I take 25,550 days, right? Right. And I minus 16,425 days, Nate, that leaves me with 9,125 days. When you look at it from that perspective and in connection with what you just said, we don't have time. I don't have time to be fighting with my wife. I don't have time not to spend with my children. I don't have time to focus on things that are not important. I don't have time. Time is of the essence. And if what the word says is true, let's say he gave me at least, right? Now, some of us live to 80, some 90, and some been blessed to live all to 100 and beyond. But let's just say he gave us the minimum of 70, and that's the time that I'm left with. Do I have time to really fight and argue with people? Nah.
Of course not.
I'm trying to make the best of this time that I have while I'm still alive. Your boy Chris used to talk about it all the time, legacy. We got a legacy to leave behind us. Yeah, man. And I want to make sure that I'm wisely spending my time so that my legacy says something.
Wow, that's deep, the way that you just reverse engineered that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like a lot of people, they don't necessarily look at it from that perspective, and they don't think to reverse engineer it, but you understand the importance now that you only have X amount of days left, even though we don't realistically know, but it's still that thought in your head that keeps you going. Because I feel like a lot of people, they're in some type of illusion that they're going to live forever.
Yep.
I mean, this is a whole nother topic. I mean, you see some of the ways that people operate with their lives. I mean, with drugs and it's insane, and they think that it's always going to last. But it doesn't.
No,
it really doesn't.
Yeah.
That's insane. But yeah, Quest, man, we could keep going on and on. I know that for a fact.
Forever.
Yeah, brother. I want to be respectful of your time and all the gems that you drop. I mean, oh my goodness, they're incredible. So where can the viewers, where can the listeners, go to, on social media? Maybe you have a podcast, maybe you have some other things for people to check out to get a in-depth.
Absolutely. You can find me on Instagram at quest_green. That's QUEST_green, like the color. You can find me at Quest Green on Twitter. You can find me at Quest Green on Facebook. I also have a YouTube channel, Quest Green, as well. You can find me there. And if you're interested in, you're saying, Nate, I'm married. I've been married for a year, 3 years, 30 years, and I need some coaching. We provide that as well. And you can stop by jquestgreen.com and see what we have to offer. You can contact me there. And we'll see if we're a compatible match, and we'll help you navigate through those difficult seasons, right? We're going into fall now. I just noticed this morning I went to take Nico out, and man, it was nippy. So I ran back inside and put a sweatshirt on. But we want to make sure that we stay in the spring and summer seasons of our marriage. Yeah,
for sure. And like you said, I'm glad you brought that up too. Just well, first off, I'll put the links below in the description for everybody to click on. But the holidays, I mean, it can be the hardest time of the year,
Oh, man.
Families.
Man. Oh, yeah.
So, no, that's for sure crucial. So you guys know exactly where to go. Quest, before we, end things, typically I like the guests to end it on sort of like that gem of the day. But I want to come at it from a different perspective, right? Because I got a lot of millennials that listen to this and entrepreneurs and business owners. What advice, and this is even just for a personal basis as well, what advice would you give to somebody in their early 20s? Or you could look at it as Nate. What advice would you give somebody like Nate that isn't in a relationship, right? That, of course, operates on a daily schedule that is super busy. They own a business and they're just so dedicated to their grind. But eventually, they're looking to find that match, find that mate. What advice would you give to somebody of that caliber right now in this moment?
I would say just to continue grinding and doing what you're doing. It's funny, Nate. when you put it out there that you are looking to move into relationship, like for real, it's God has a funny way of working. There are 1,000,001 ways that we know about for him to work out a situation, but there's also 1,000,001 that we don't know about. And I would say 99.9% of the time, he comes from the place of the 1,000,001 that we don't know about. And so I would say continue to grind. It's funny. You'll find people that you know what I'm saying, as you're doing your daily duties, or, you know, when you're working, or you go to the gym to work out, like for real, keep doing that every day. And then when you do find that person, Nate, that you want to spend time with, enjoy the friendship. Let the relationship of a friendship naturally, you know what I'm saying, grow into a committed relationship. And, you know, committed dating, like, okay, yep, we're exclusively dating. And then from dating to an exclusively committed relationship. And then from a committed relationship to an engaged. Let those things naturally happen. Don't let people rush you into it. Let me tell you something. Enjoy your time together. Enjoy your singleness, or your singledom, if you will. Enjoy the relationship. And if you can enjoy those two, then you will eventually enjoy the marriage.
Man, straight up, brother. I appreciate you sharing that. On a personal level too. You feel me?
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah, Quest. But hey, brother, again, I really appreciate your time. Appreciate all the value, all the gems that you dropped today, man.
Oh, man, I appreciate you for having me on.
Heck yeah, brother. We'll be in touch. All right.
All right, we'll do.
Thanks for listening to the Roots of Success podcast. Don't forget to leave a 5-star review. I really appreciate that, as well as a like and a subscribe. Stay connected between shows by following me on Instagram at Nate the Great. And remember, guys, success starts here. Keep winning. Nate the Great signing off.